Hey guys, what's up? Big Scoundrel here, and today we are going to be looking at the jungle in Vainglory 5v5. This video will be going through some replay footage of a game that I played recently, talking about my decision making in the jungle, and hopefully you guys can translate that decision making into actual games of your own. The first thing to note is that this is a replay file, so you will see the movements of all of my allies as well as all of my enemies. Remember, when I was in this game, I could not see all of the enemies on the map, so some decisions that I made in this game may look kind of funny, but that's simply because I did not have the information about the enemy's movements, so I obviously didn't quite know where everybody was. The first thing that we should talk about is where do you start on the map as a jungler. My personal preference is starting at the buff that your jungler is going to get the most use out of. For instance, I am a weapon power glaive in this game, therefore I'm going to get the most use out of the weapon power buff, and therefore I'm going to start there first and rotate from that through the jungle to whatever I choose to do next. If I'm a crystal power jungler, I would start at the crystal power buff, take that and do the same thing. You can donate your first buff to one of your allies. I donated the crystal power buff this time round to my top lane CP Reza. But you can donate it to your mid lane, you can donate it to whoever would need it. You don't need both of your buffs on first rotation, you just need the one that is most useful to you. So I took the weapon power buff because A, it helps my clear speed, B, it's going to help me in ganks, and C, it's going to help me duel against the enemy jungle. Now, I can't see the Ozo and the Krul here, but what I'm doing is trying to look for an opportunity to get some counter-jungling off. It just so happened that they were at that camp as I appeared there, and because I split the experience 3-way on my weapon power buff, I didn't get level 2 while they were there, couldn't afterburn in and try and steal it, so I just have to back off in this situation. Now, Kestrel actually saw Krul coming here, and so Kestrel's dead, basically. I couldn't really help her. It was 3 versus 2 if I went in and I was already pretty low, so Kestrel just had to back off, but she didn't back off and she got killed, so whatever, that just happened. You have to deal with it. An important thing to note is that I now know that Krul has got both his weapon power and his CP power buff, which means I know that he started at his weapon power Treant and came straight to his CP Treant, meaning there are probably some things left alive. You can see here that I go for a gank onto the Kestrel. It may look funny because of where Krul is. You've got to remember that I didn't see Krul. I didn't have any vision of Krul, I had no idea he was there, and that resulted in my death. What I was trying to do was utilize the fact that I have my weapon power buff and the fact that I was going to be good against a Kestrel because of the gap closing ability that I had, and I might have been able to get a kill in return, but unfortunately the Krul kept in that position and stayed there and waited for me to gank. I didn't know that would be the case. I thought he might have gone and cleared his entire jungle, but unfortunately I got caught out. So from this point forward, I'm going to really be thinking about where Krul is on the map, because I made this mistake already. I want to kind of smooth it out a little bit and start to be a little bit more proactive in my thinking. And that's one of the things that's really important to jungling in all MOBAs in general, but especially in Vainglory 5v5. It is very important to think about where the enemy jungler is and try and think about that at all times. So actually we saw here that Vox was being chased down mid lane by Ozo and Krul. It was a really easy gank for me to respond to. It's what we call a counter gank. Basically tried to counter gank where Krul was. I was then about to go look for some counter jungling opportunities, because I think whenever you get a bit of time and space and you have an enemy jungler that is weak or backing, you should always be looking to try and take away some kind of camps from them, be it just their front healing camps, their crystal Treant, or whatever you can try and garner from them. It is important to try and steal away stuff from your enemy where you can. But unfortunately, Krul re-showed himself, he got the kill, and it meant that I had to then just kind of respond to that. And I actually ended up picking the kill for myself, so that's not too bad. I'm actually starting to spike pretty hard now. I've got my heavy steel. I can start to go towards my first tier 3 item. So I'm in a good position as glaive right now. So we're getting to the point in the game where it's a little bit difficult to know what to do. Your rotations will just start to respawn, and you'll be thinking in your head, should I start donating my buffs over? I continue to donate my CP buff over. I'm not going to get much use out of that buff whatsoever. I would rather it go to Idris, so I'm happy to give that over to him. I am going to take the weapon power buff, though. I'm not going to give it to Kestrel. She's too far behind. I have got half of our team's kills, so it's far better for me to have that. It's going to continue to help my ganks and my clear speed, and like a heavy ganking jungler like Glaive, you are going to need that kind of buff. I accidentally steal away the healing Treant here, accidentally in inverted commas, and Kestrel decides to int. But I do end up getting a kill on the Ozo because I find them pushing very hard onto our turret. I afterburn the Ozo back into the turret range, and that basically gives me a free kill. You'll see Kestrel kill herself in a minute because she's not very happy. She was spam pinging me, and she trolls me for a few minutes. But we're going to skip forward a bit in time here till we get to some more sensible decision making. So there's a little side note that we can talk about here, is that you just saw Kestrel run at the turret and kill herself. She also starts to troll me a little bit. She follows me around and spam pings me. I end up muting her, and this is a little bit of a sort of a anecdote on how to deal with trolls. In 5v5, trolls are not the end of the world. You might get one troll, and they might cause you an issue, but it's still perfectly possible to carry a game by yourself, even with a troll. Kestrel wasn't trolling super hard. She didn't go and get herself killed over and over, but she obviously was being a little bit of a nuisance. Just carry on with your gameplay. Continue to do what you would do even if she wasn't trolling, and try and carry the game yourself. You can see Kestrel's just following me around in the jungle at this point. It's okay to share the experience. I'm not going to be too worried. I just want to make sure that I'm securing the last hits, because I think that with the kills that I've got, hitting these item spikes, I'm more likely to be a carry than she is at this point. Now you can see the scout cam goes down onto the crystal treant. Why am I taking the crystal power buff if I can't use it? I'm doing it to secure it from the enemy Krul. He was in the area, he scout cammed it, and it's much better for a buff to go to your team, even if someone can't use it, than for it to go to the enemy team. What I could have done here is checked the crystal buff. Gwen didn't have it. It might be up on their side of the field, so I probably could have got away with going over and trying to counter jungle that immediately. What you can see here is both Vox and Kestrel coming over to this buff. I'm actually going to give this over to the Kestrel now. A, it's going to appease her slightly, and it's not really that much skin off my back. And B, she might actually make use of it. She doesn't, by the way, just spoiler alert, she gets herself killed within the first 5 seconds, and I get sad. But regardless, I think, you know, she's hitting her own item spikes. Therefore, it's probably worth giving her the weapon power buff to see how she does with it in the bottom lane. I put a really bad scout cam down, and I just see that the crystal treant is up on their side, so now I'm going to take this opportunity to take it away. It denies the crystal buff from their Ozo, who's the only bloody crystal member on their team. Everybody else is weapon power. And also means that no one else on their team is going to get it, so I've denied them a pretty significant buff. Now you can see the bot lane, Kestrel's got dived by the Ozo and the Kestrel. She's now dead, but now it's an opportunity for me and Grace to react. We reacted to the dive, even though the turret went down, and with the fact that I'm in a pretty good spot right now, I can essentially start to clean things up here. Kestrel's in the middle of nowhere at this point in time. She's not really going to escape easily, and I'm in a position where I do a lot of damage. So I'm going to continue to walk and attack her. I'm basically stutter-stepping as I go. It's trying to stop her from going into the stealth, but I had Afterburn to follow her up even if she did have stealth. And that meant that I was able to pick up the kill. So we avenged Kestrel's death. She even got an assist as well. We did lose the turret, however, so I've got to start to think about global objectives at this point. So here, there was an opportunity to kill the Ringo. I thought my Afterburn would stun him into the wall, but I actually ended up just knocking him away and saving his life, because I'm bad. I do a little bit of counter-jungling after going to the item shop. There's no vision around me. I know that I'm pretty safe. A massive fight breaks out in the mid lane, and we lose one member, but loads of low members of the enemy team around, and my team's pretty healthy at this point in time. So this is an opportunity for me to continue and put pressure down. The reason I'm doing this and joining the fight, even though it looked like we were on the back foot, is that I know that my presence is pretty strong right now. I've got a lot of kills, but second most is that there's an opportunity with the big minion wave building up to go for this turret. So this is what I do. I have the opportunity to now push onto this turret. I almost die. We get the complete cleanup of the enemy team except for the Kestrel in the bot lane, and that gives Dowsey the opportunity to take that mid lane turret and open up the mid lane for us. So again, looking to make decisions based on global objectives. I joined that fight knowing that I could turn it around, with the end result is getting the mid lane turret. Every decision that you make in 5v5 has to have some sort of end result to it. If you counter jungle, you're stealing farm from the enemy jungler, that's good, but do you know where the enemy jungler is? Are you sure that it is safe? If you gank a lane, are you sure that that lane has got vision control? Are you sure that the enemy jungle isn't there to counter jungle you? Are you sure that you're going to get the kill? Like, everything has to kind of be calculated with some sort of risk, reward benefit behind it. I take this weapon treant because no one's going to take it. I'd rather get it on rotation. At this point, I'm actually getting pretty strong. I've picked up the Poison Shiv, so I've got the Sora Blade Poison Shiv now, so I've got a bit of sustain as well as some attack speed. Does mean we end up losing our own mid lane turret, but you can see here that actually the end result of that is that we cleaned up quite a number of the kills from the enemy team. They're now going to look to collapse on Dowsey. As you can see, Dowsey's now stuck between them and the Ringo. But we can actually respond to this pretty quickly, and you can see here I jump straight in there. I look to zone the Ringo away by running at him. The Gwen also is forced to run back because of that. And because we still have our top lane tier 1 up, because Dowsey's been doing an excellent job, we're able to then get both of those kills. I'm starting to ping Ghostwing at this point, but everyone else is kind of disappearing. The best result that we could have had was either push top lane as a unit or push for Ghostwing. I actually start to go towards Ghostwing because I thought the team would come with me, but unfortunately it's just me. So with this Captain Minion wave, what I'm going to do here is push this wave up, allow this Captain Minion wave to crash into the enemy tier 2, which is going to force them to respond to that Minion wave. I then have this opportunity to look to go and get the Crystal Treant, for instance. That was a massive replay blug. As you can see, I'm attacking nothing, but the Crystal Treant's dying. So I look look for this opportunity to go and do some counter jungling. Getting the Crystal Treant again denies it from the enemy team, even though Ozo's the only one that can use it. And I'm going to continue to do the same here. As you can see, the Kestrel kind of just appears next to me. I use my reflex block on her stealth because I don't want to get stunned. And with my Kestrel in lane, we look to push and get the kill, which we do. And because there's a minion wave already shoving into the bot lane tier 1, we end up getting that kill onto the turret. Now, because we have cleaned out that bot side of the map, I've taken all the enemy jungle away, and I can see that the majority of the enemy are on the top side of the map. I'm going to start to do Ghostwing, because I know that we're actually pretty safe. I've seen 3 to 4 members of the enemy on the top side of the map. We've just killed the Kestrel on the bottom side of the map. I have a Poison Shiv. I can tank this with the Sora Blade and Poison Shiv. And Kestrel actually ends up helping me, which means we do end up getting Ghostwing. It's actually a really, really tense situation because Kestrel stops attacking it. And I actually end up having to use my Afterburn in combination with Kestrel to take the Cruel out. And we end up getting the Ghostwing, and I'm on very little HP. That could have gone very wrong, by the way, but we end up making it work for us, which was really good. So now we're just going to skip a little bit forward because I'm just basically buying and heading into my own jungle. At this point, I'm going to do some jungle farming. I'm going to just clean up as many camps as I can because, you know, at this stage of the game, it's less about your farm, just trying to take things when it's convenient to do so. I'm really fed. Now, Vox wants this buff, but I am really fed at this point. I've got huge amounts of attack behind me. I've got 2 item spike. I've got a bit of shielding as well. I'm in a really good position. I would much rather give this to myself and start to do some serious damage. And you saw a nice little cheeky combo there between me and the Grace. So I would much rather take the weapon power buff for myself and continue to be a threat. I can see that the mid lane tier 2 is pretty low, but we don't really have the minion wave to stick to take that. So right now I can see a huge gathering of force in the top side of the map, and that means I'm going to respond to it and head over there with my team. They look to push onto the Kestrel. This is where I come in and start to do some work. Ozo's pretty low, doesn't really have much gold behind him, and so it's a pretty easy cleanup for me and the rest of the team. We now have the option to push this minion wave in and take this tier 1 turret in the top lane because that's not already gone down. They really can't defend this, and if Gwen sticks around, she's going to be dead if I can kill her with the Afterburn. So that's what we do. We take the tier 1 as a team. Our Kestrel goes back to deal with the enemy Kestrel who's been split pushing, which is a really sensible move because we don't exactly need her to do this. So we're going to continue to push as a squad here onto this tier 2. Ringo starts casting Hellfire Brew, which actually forces our Grace to go in, which is a really, really solid option. Cruel actually starts landing everything onto me, but I'm really tanky because I'm a glaive at this point in time. And because of that dive, and because of the way it was orchestrated, we get yet another turret from this situation. We used a lot of resources to get that though, which means we're probably not able to push onto this tier 3 or the armory turret. But I'm going to stick zoning Kestrel out while the rest of my team takes out the Ozo. You can see here that my main job was there to stop the Kestrel reacting to the fight, because a couple of stray glimmer shots could have maybe killed a lot of the squishy members of my squad. I'm actually going to give this weapon power buff, I think, over to the Vox, because I was a bit of a horrible person beforehand and took my own one. So I think with my own one coming off cooldown fairly quickly, and it's going to respawn fairly soon, I'm just going to give that one over to him and let him have it, which is going to make him happy. It appeases him a little bit, and it also allows him to be a bit more effective as a Vox, who's now at his own 2 item spike. So, you know, it's not bad for him to have the power of that weapon power buff behind him, especially with the breaking point. So you can see here, I'm going to start to do some more counter jungling. I'm counter jungling specifically because I'm very far ahead of the enemy Cruel in terms of levels and damage output. So being this far ahead gives me the opportunity to steal away farm. The reason I want to steal away farm is that A, it denies resources like buffs, but it also denies experience and gold, keeping them further behind. So whenever you have an opportunity, I would recommend trying to find counter jungling opportunities at every given space, because it's a really good way to starve your enemy of resources. You may also notice that I picked up War Treads. In this particular situation, my end build is going to be Sora Blade, Poison Shiv, Breaking Point. I'm going to play a more sustained focused glaive instead of playing for a critical strike focused glaive. That means that I want to build to help my team. So I'm going to go for the War Treads. The War Treads specifically because A, I think the mobility is important for the likes of Dowsy on the Reza. It's important for the Kestrel and Vox to kite. So I think having a second set of War Treads alongside the Grace, who will finish up hers eventually, is definitely very, very helpful for my team. But it also makes me a bit tankier, and given that I'm playing a sustained build in a 5v5 scenario, I actually think that War Treads are a better option. we actually do a bit of work and force away some of the enemy members of the team. I can see Krul here dueling me. He's reducing my damage output, which means I back off for him. So as soon as those stacks drop, I find it's an opportunity to head back in and start to fight him. Again, the best thing you can do against Krul is try and force him to drop those stacks. And we take out the Kestrel, we take out the Gwen, and we take out the Krul. And as you can see here, we end up taking out the Kestrel too. That's a massive cleanup of the enemy squad. The only one of them left alive right now is the Ringo. So we're going to leave the Kestrel and the Grace to go and take Ghostwing by themselves. Kestrel should have enough damage to do it with Grace tanking. I'm going to then go up towards Blacklaw, and with Dowsy maybe find an opportunity to take Blacklaw. Dowsy actually ends up taking the healing trail, which feels bad, man, but I do have the Poison Shiv in my inventory to help out. So I pick up an infusion, and me and Dowsy start to do Blacklaw by ourselves. Assuming that our team is going to come respond to this. The enemy doesn't have any vision of it, as you can see. We weren't aware that the enemy had no vision of it, but we just thought that this was a good opportunity for both of us, who are pretty strong, probably the two strongest players on our team right now, to take a game-ending objective like the Blacklaw. And with everybody probably distracted with Ghostwing, with the Kestrel and the Grace taking Ghostwing themselves, we basically have the opportunity to close out the game here. So, something that I will note, as we take 2 global objectives off the map and begin our final push towards the enemy Vein Crystal, the spectator client is bugged. You'll see that a lot of the builds look incomplete. At some point it just stops registering items that you've built. You can see on my screen I've got a Wartreads, Crucible, Sora Blade and Poison Shiv. The reason I went Crucible is again for the same reason that I went Wartreads. I didn't really see any defensive items that were really strong, so I felt that a defensive item that would benefit the entirety of my team, including the squishies on my team, would be better. Like maybe I could have got some armor, but I didn't feel like it was super necessary because I had a lot of sustain and I was pretty far ahead. So I'd much prefer to get something like a Crucible, which will help protect my team, especially because Grace doesn't have one at the moment in time. So I provided the Crucible and the Wartreads to our team, and Grace provided the rest, and I was still able to be a massive damage threat coming from the jungle. This is the kind of the variety that 5v5 allows you to have. It really lets you play around with the builds and play around with the roles. No longer does a jungler have to be a all-out damage jungler. You have 3 laners on your team, who all of which have got very good gold income, which can be the damage threat themselves. So I went for a semi-supportive jungler off the back of my 3-item build. I went for Spell Sword, Poison Shiv and Breaking Point this game, and then I built a lot more defensive utility items before building anything else that benefited myself. The reason that I went this build is I think it's really strong on Glaive right now. You can choose between the Spell Sword, which is a more utility focused Glaive build where you're going to have Afterburn and have the energy for Afterburn more often, or you can go for the Sora Blade version of this build, which actually puts out a lot more upfront damage, but also means that you can't use Afterburns as often, you are way more energy hungry, and you have to make sure that your Afterburns that you use count. I think both builds are very good, and feel free to try this out in your own 5v5 games, but as you can see, I basically played as a supportive jungler off the back of a very good early game. I invested the resources that I got early game into damage items, and then decided to be a bit more of a team player and provide protection for my 3 laners, which you can see Dowsy was really fed, Kestrel was getting towards the late game, as was my Vox. So it's very possible to carry games in pretty much any role in 5v5, and you can see here that we did really well this game and pretty much dominated the enemy team.